should have just gone through the lesson of basic copyright rules when it comes to podcasting. And if you weren't in class, you can check out that slideshow before you check out this video. In this video, we're going to talk about the basics of importing some music and recording audio in Adobe Audition. So let's go back to Adobe Audition. We have, from our last video, our multi-track view of our setup. We see all our different tracks. The main thing we first want to do when we're in this view is press the FX button. This will allow you to put sound effects, which we'll talk about in later lessons. And we also want to make sure we're hitting the time selection tool. This is the most useful tool in terms of deleting or selecting, copy and pasting little bits of audio once we have them here. So make sure you have both of those. The other useful things are our zoom in and our zoom out. So you can use different shortcuts. It's different on the Mac than it is for the PC. But just Google the shortcuts for zoom in and zoom out. But if you don't want to use keyboard shortcuts, just use this. So this will zoom out lengthwise so we can see the full length of our project. If it goes up to a minute, so that's just a minute of audio there. Times are right there. And then the really useful one is the zoom out and zoom in for amplitude. So this can show us all of our tracks. The most important thing to always remember is when you have a different song or a different voice, always put that on a new track. Adobe's been nice to us here, and they've labeled all of these tracks, but we can change these labels, and when we put our first voiceover in, we'll be putting it on this host track. I'm actually going to change it right now and just call it voiceover 1. Okay, maybe before I kind of overview the basics of each track, let's just record a little audio, shall we? Right now I'm wearing super crappy headphones, so the audio is going to be really bad. Audio, like video in general, you want to record it well first, and then you don't have to do as much in the post-production in terms of editing. The biggest mistake that I have seen in the work that I've done and the schooling that I've done in media is just people assume you can absolutely work magic when it comes to editing. So they'll have really crappy audio or really crappy video, and they'll be like, oh, whatever, we'll just edit it. No, do not do this. Record it well the first time, record it or shoot it well the first time if you're doing video, and it will make everything so much easier when it comes to audio. So the first thing we want to do to record a new track is go waveform. So this will create a new audio file. We are going to call this voiceover 1, and make sure the sample rate's at 44/100. Make sure that is at stereo. It could be stereo or mono, but let's just stick with stereo for our purposes. And then always make sure your bit depth is at 16. Go OK. This will open up a new audio file for you. And then just once you press the recording button, it's going to record. Always, if you're ever having troubles, just make sure you're recording with the right thing. So to ensure you're recording with the right thing, meaning the right microphone, we go Adobe Audition, we go Preferences, and we go Audio Hardware. So this is our default input and default output. Holy, that's a hard word to say. These are really essential to get to know when it comes to editing in general, or just like any technology in general. Your input is how sound is coming in, right? So I can record stuff through Zoom or Microsoft Teams. Highly wouldn't recommend that. Right now, all I have is my built-in microphone. But if you, and which I'd highly recommend you doing, using a separate microphone to record, like a USB mic, it will show up here and you'd select that. And then I have my built-in output. So this is just how the sound's coming through. So I just keep it on default. And then if you plug headphones in, just keep it on system default and it will go right through your headphones. So I have a mic in my headphones. It's a horrible mic, but it's still a mic. So for our purposes, it's going to be fine. So default built-in microphone, my headphones are plugged in. It's going to go through my headphone mic. Press OK. And testing, 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 testing. If I pull the microphone closer to my voice, see how much more those waves go up. And it's a little bit farther away now. Boom. 14 seconds. Sure, that's all we need. Awesome. So we have our first voiceover clip here. It's nothing special, but for the purposes of this video, that's all we need. Now, if we want to get that voiceover clip in, we go back to our multi-track view. So we were in waveform, go back to multi-track. And then it might have you default in your favorites over here. Just go to your files, and then boom, voiceover one's right there, 16 seconds. That's exactly what we recorded at, so we know that's the right one. Just drag it in here, boom, and it's there. And you can listen back to it. Sounds actually not awful for the crappy microphone I have. Let's expand it so we can play around with it a little bit. Now I'll just take you through the real basics of what this track looks like. So this is the track volume, right? If we want to have our voice higher or lower, we can play around with this dial. Generally speaking, the voice is the most important thing, right? So we want that to be higher, although we don't want it peaking. Peaking is something we'll get to in later lessons. Then this is our stereo. So if we put it right like 33, that means it's coming through just the right side. So that's either the right speaker, if you have a sweet little speaker setup, or that's the right headphone if you're wearing headphones, right or left. Generally with voice, we want it to just be, right down the middle, so 0. But I would love all of you in your project to experiment a little bit, and maybe in your intro you have one voice coming through the right headphone, one voice coming through the left, repeatedly. That would be a super cool effect, and that would definitely count as your effects. Forever effects here, which we'll learn about later. And then the M button is for muting this track, right? So if we wanted to listen to other tracks and not this one, we just press the M. And then the solo is if we just want to listen to this track. So we only have one track right now, so we don't need the solo. But those are kind of the basic controls that all of you will need to know. So that's the basic of recording audio. Now, when it comes to the basics of importing audio, let's import some music, shall we? On our second track, again, what do we need to do whenever there's new audio? Always put it on a new track. You will thank me later, I promise. It just makes things a lot easier and less confusing. So after we've gone through the slideshow that talks about copyright and royalty-free, we maybe just look up royalty-free music. I just went to Pixabay. They're pretty good, but there's no shortage of royalty-free music. The reason I'm picking a royalty-free song is because I'm going to be playing a lot of it. So if I'm going to be playing a lot of it, it's our best bet, our safest bet is to go with royalty-free. So I would download this. I've already downloaded it. It's in my downloads. Show in Finder. It's an MP3 file. That's completely fine for our purposes. I'm going to now just ensure that is in the same folder that I created in the last lesson, right? So I put in Mr. Beck's Audition Projects, and I'll put it in Podcast Intro Mr. Beck. That way it's really accessible and easy to find. That's super important that we save any new audio that we import in the same place where our project is. If you don't do that, it can really screw you in the long run. Alright, let's go back and we'll just select our music track, which we're on, and then I'll go right click, import, and this song, the royalty-free song, is called Floating Abstract. There it is, boom, and then I just click and drag, and then boom, we have our music on another level. So if we want to kind of play from the top, definitely already have a super crappy, but it's there, voice over background music. So that's kind of the basics. For the rest of this class, I pretty much want you all to just mess around with different tracks, different audio, whether it's royalty free or not. Go check it out. Record some voiceover. You will probably have to re-record for your actual project, but I just want us to get used to messing around with these things and playing around with them. And then obviously with any tech program, when in doubt, always just Google if you have a question, right? This is such a super common program. You guys are super lucky to have access to it, and there's plenty of videos and lessons and Reddit forums and whatever on Adobe Audition. So go check them out. Okay, that's it for importing audio and recording voices or voiceovers.